At the beginning of the story, there was a woman named Hua Qian. She was ragged, with a group of fierce-looking soldiers behind her. Hua Qian was dragged back to the government office, only to find that her family had been killed in the chaos. She was in agony. Suddenly, everything blurred before her eyes. If life could start over, Hua Qian would surely make a change. When she woke up again, Hua Qian found herself dressed in wedding attire, with a maid reminding her that today was the day she married into the Zhong family. Though this day should have happened 2 years ago, Hua Qian pinched her face hard, astonished to find it all real. Memories flooded back like a revolving lantern before her eyes. Hua Qian had impersonated Mu Yao to get close to Zhong Yuan, manipulated him into marrying her, and schemed to ruin the Mu family. After all truths came to light, Hua Qian was thrown out. Now, she resolved to turn over a new leaf and not look back. On the day of returning to Hua Qian's home, Zhong Yuan's complexion changed drastically, his inner turmoil evident as he learned of Mu Yao's escape. By his side, Hua Qian, having anticipated the turn of events, willingly released Zhong Yuan. Meanwhile, a beggar, pursued by a merchant, intercepted Hua Qian's carriage. Personally engaging the merchant in negotiation, Hua Qian came to the beggar's aid. Upstairs, Zhong Xiu observed it all, feeling as though Hua Qian had transformed into a different person. Hua Qian insisted on taking a girl home from the tea house, despite her tearful protests. Upstairs, Zhong Xiu, upon hearing the commotion, instructed his guards to intervene and help the girl. Hua Qian, upon learning of her brother's actions at the tea house, shook her head in dismay. Seeing his sister approach, Hua Qian rushed to her, pleading for sympathy and asking Hua Qian to seek revenge for him. The guard couldn't resist mocking Hua Qian, alleging that she used despicable means to marry Zhong Yuan. Suddenly, a young man lunged at the guard, and they engaged in a fierce brawl, resulting in the young man sustaining serious injuries. Hua Qian hurried to defend the young man, accusing the guard of disrespecting the Zhong family. She demanded that both the guard and Hua Qian be imprisoned. Eventually, the guard apologized voluntarily, and the girl stated that she wouldn't pursue the matter further, bringing an end to the conflict. As Hua Qian pondered the identity of the guard, Zhong Xiu appeared unexpectedly and offered to ride in Hua Qian's carriage home. Throughout the journey, they remained silent, and Hua Qian felt extremely awkward. The princess instructed Hua Qian to deliver lychees to Zhong Xiu, who ignored her. When Hua Qian placed the food box on the table, Zhong Xiu handed her a ledger detailing Hua Qian's extravagant spending and financial transactions. Hua Qian sensed the implicit meaning in Zhong Xiu's words and quickly knelt down to beg for forgiveness. However, Zhong Xiu remained relentless, asking Hua Qian how she intended to deal with Hua Qian. Hua Qian fiercely pinched herself, then collapsed, sitting weakly, resembling a startled rabbit, and pleaded with Zhong Xiu for forgiveness. On the day of the ancestral ceremony, Hua Qian meticulously dressed herself. According to her past memories, Wu Suamo would disguise himself as a member of the Gu family and lead a group to steal the secret formula. Mu Yao, in order to save Zhong Yuan, took the arrow for him. True to Hua Qian's expectations, an arrow suddenly appeared on the table in front of Zhong Xiu. Amidst the chaos, another arrow was aimed at Zhong Yuan, and without hesitation, Hua Qian took the arrow for him. After lying unconscious for an unknown duration, Hua Qian finally woke up, with Zhong Yuan urging her to rest well. Seizing this opportunity, Hua Qian revealed the truth. The young girl in the temple that day wasn't her but Mu Yao. The mistake that day was also orchestrated by Hua Qian and not intentionally by Zhong Yuan. Hua Qian hoped Zhong Yuan could give her a chance to repent, her guilt not extending to her family. Zhong Xiu appeared in Hua Qian's nightmare, and in a daze, she couldn't help but express disdain, remarking that there was no peace even in dreams. Zhong Xiu questioned why she could remain composed and decisive at the ceremony. Rising to her feet, Hua Qian knelt down, declaring that the doctor had indeed confirmed her injuries were not feigned. A hint of panic flashed in Zhong Xiu's eyes. Zhong Xiu hurried to rise, intending to offer support to Hua Qian, only to be preempted by her attendant. A tinge of disappointment flickered in Zhong Xiu's eyes as his hand found no place to settle. As soon as Hua Qian entered the Zhong residence, she came face to face with Zhong Xiu. Originally intending to apologize, Zhong Xiu's words took a sour turn as they left his mouth. Startled, Hua Qian turned and left abruptly. Hua Qian and the princess exchanged many personal words while holding hands. As the evening wore on, Hua Qian rose to bid farewell, with Zhong Xiu quickly following suit. Hua Qian hurried ahead, but Zhong Xiu, resignedly, stepped forward to catch up with her. When Zhong Xiu attempted to hold her hand, Hua Qian shook it off, accusing him of overstepping. Zhong Xiu dismissed his attendants and apologized for his recent behavior, but Hua Qian firmly stated her position. Disheartened, Zhong Xiu departed. The annual fragrance appreciation banquet was bustling with excitement, Finding it dull, Hua Qian stepped out for some fresh air, only to be followed by Wu Suama. He proposed a partnership with Hua Qian, who excused herself due to feeling unwell. However, Wu Suama persisted and attempted to catch up with her. Just then, Zongsuo suddenly appeared, causing Wu Suama to leave. Hua Qian hinted to Zongsuo to boldly pursue Mu Yao, but Zongsuo didn't grasp her suggestion. Meanwhile, Hua Qian encountered Hua Man. Learning of Hua Qian's intention to leave, Hua Man sarcastically remarked on her being snubbed by others. Ignoring her, Hua Qian noticed a figure behind the artificial mountain and deliberately provoked Hua Man. Hua Man claimed that once she became the mistress of the Zhong family, she would make the Hua family kneel before her. Emerging from behind the mountain, Zongsuo scolded Hua Man harshly, pretending to be aggrieved. Hua Qian watched as Hua Man, unable to tolerate it any longer, picked up a teapot and aimed it at her. In a moment of desperation, Zongsuo swiftly pulled Hua Qian into his embrace, shielding her from the scalding hot water. Startled by Zongsuo's steaming clothes, Hua Qian stepped back in fright, following Zongsuo into a private room. He insisted that his injury was because of her and demanded that he let her apply medicine. Seizing the opportunity, Zongsuo asked Hua Qian about her words behind the artificial mountain. She explained that the eyes betray one's true feelings towards another. Slowly advancing, Zongsuo cornered Hua Qian against the door, causing her to accidentally bump into the door frame. In the evening, while strolling around, Hua Qian spotted Zongsuo standing in the corner. She murmured softly, wondering if Zongsuo had placed a spy by her side, as he seemed to know her every move. Without a word, Zongsuo led Hua Qian to the attic that pointed directly towards the sky, and without hesitation, he took her hand and led her upstairs. After what seemed like ages, Hua Qian finally reached the highest point of the attic. Gasping for breath, she felt sore all over. Looking up, she saw the bustling night view of the magnificent city and couldn't help but ask Zongsuo why he was so kind to her. Zongsuo replied that allies should help each other, leading Hua Qian to misunderstand that Zongsuo wanted to use her help to get to Mu Yao. Sighing, Hua Qian started to move forward. Zongsuo quickly reached out and hugged her, afraid she might fall if she wasn't careful. Hua Qian couldn't help but laugh and asked Zongsuo if he was still thinking about her. Zongsuo gazed at Hua Qian for a long time before slowly answering, yes. Then, he turned around and brought a bottle of wine, intending to share it with Hua Qian. Unaware that it was the strongest liquor, Hua Qian drank a lot in one go. During the mid-autumn banquet, Hua Qian asked her father if he was willing to give up wealth and prestige for the sake of the Hua family. While Wenang remained reticent, Hua Qian's hand trembled as she raised her cup, finishing her tea in one gulp before standing up and leaving. Zongsuo hurriedly followed and informed her that the divorce papers were ready. After expressing her gratitude, Hua Qian turned and departed. Zongsuo subconsciously reached out to stop her, but was blocked by Hua Rongzhou. An inexplicable emotion filled Zongsuo's heart as he ordered his men to investigate Hua Rongzhou. Back in the hall, a group of masked men in black barged in. A sharp sword was aimed straight at Hua Qian, but it was intercepted by Hua Shen in time. Hua Qian rushed forward to check on him, but he smiled and reassured her not to worry. Soon after, Hua Qian was knocked unconscious and abducted by two masked men. When she woke up, she found herself hanging over a cliff, with Mu Yao bound beside her. Zhang Yelin received the news and hurried to the cliff. The masked men gave him an ultimatum: save either Hua Qian or Mu Yao. Zhang Yelin hesitated. Seeing Mu Yao's reaction, Hua Qian seemed to understand something. She couldn't help but laugh, then took out the bracelet given to her by Hua Rongzhou and cut the rope. Dropping down, fortunately, there was an amber field below, saving her life. She attempted to find shelter but was injured and struggled due to heavy rain. Fortunately, Hua Rongzhou arrived just in time. When Hua Qian woke up again, she was back at the Hua residence. She learned of her brother's demise and stumbled to his coffin, seeing his lifeless body. Hua Qian arrived at Hua Shen's gravesite, gently brushing over his tombstone and pouring 3 cups of wine for him. After sitting in silence for some time, as she prepared to leave, she saw Zhong Xiwu standing behind her. Zhong Xiwu handed her a letter and then straightforwardly expressed his long-hidden affection for Hua Qian. Hua Qian was somewhat perplexed, asking when Zhong Xiwu's feelings had changed. Zhong Xiwu admitted frankly that his feelings had always been for Hua Qian. Hua Qian was taken aback, recalling the various interactions she had with Zhong Xiwu in the past, only now realizing that his feelings for her had always been different. Zhong Xiwu also told Hua Qian that if she was willing, he could openly stand by her side. Hearing this, Hua Qian felt conflicted, but her rationality compelled her to step back. Zhong Xiwu smiled gently and took a step forward, extending his hand to Hua Qian. Hua Qian stared intently at that hand, unsure if she could grasp the hand reaching out to her. Just as Hua Qian was cautiously about to reach out her hand, an anxious voice from Cui Zhu nearby interrupted. It turned out that on the day Hua Qian fell off the cliff, Hua Rongzhou also jumped down after her. Still recovering from injuries inflicted by Zhong Yilan, coupled with the injuries from this incident, Hua Rongzhou finally couldn't bear it and fainted. Hua Qian felt regretful, wondering why she hadn't noticed Hua Rongzhou's injuries earlier. Hua Qian had intended to leave, but her clothes were tightly held by the dreaming Hua Rongzhou. Helpless, Hua Qian ended up sitting by the bedside, keeping watch over Hua Rongzhou for the entire night. On that day, Hua Qian and Hua Rongzhou were strolling through the streets together. Suddenly, a couple pointed at Hua Rongzhou and accused him of being a murderer. The crowd started murmuring and pointing fingers at Hua Rongzhou. Hua Qian shielded Hua Rongzhou behind her and asked the woman for evidence. However, Hua Rongzhou admitted to Hua Qian that he had indeed killed someone. Despite this, Hua Qian still protected him, loudly rebuking those who dared to lay hands on him and refusing to let them take Hua Rongzhou away. Watching from nearby, Zhong Xiwu stepped forward and directly pulled Hua Qian away from Hua Rongzhou's side. Zhong Xiwu told Hua Qian about Hua Rongzhou's background, but she still refused to believe it. In the prison, after listening to Hua Rongzhou's story, Hua Qian felt deeply sorry for him. She promised Hua Rongzhou that she would find a way to get him out. Hua Qian approached Zhong Xiwu and pleaded with him to release Hua Rongzhou. Zhong Xiwu had a grudge against Hua Rongzhou in his heart and blamed Hua Rongzhou for not having the appearance of a guard when he looked at Hua Qian. The next day, Hua Qian went to find Zhong Xiwu, but after waiting for a long time, he didn't appear. She was about to leave when Zhong Xiwu suddenly opened the door and pulled her inside. Zhong Xiwu pressed Hua Qian against the door, asking if she was going to push him away again. But for Hua Qian, her only intention was to save Hua Rongzhou. Zhong Xiwu's eyes were filled with disappointment. Hua Qian claimed that she already knew it was Meng Fei who had sent someone to kill her, resulting in Hua Qian's death. Zhong Xiwu had known about it all along but had kept it from Hua Qian. He promised her that he would make the Meng family pay. Hua Qian knelt down and offered not to pursue the matter further against Meng Fei in exchange for Zhong Xiwu letting Hua Rongzhou go and allowing her family to leave Huang City. Zhong Xiwu was momentarily flustered and threw her father's incriminating evidence in front of her. Hua Qian was stunned, realizing instantly that there were Zhong Xiwu's spies around her as well. In the end, Zhong Xiwu agreed to release Hua Rongzhou. However, he demanded that Hua Qian publicly expose the crimes of the Hua family herself. Hua Qian didn't want to say more and turned to leave. After the death of Hua Xian, Hua's mother's hair turned white overnight. She also realized she shouldn't blame Hua Qian for Hua Xian's death. They embraced tightly. After that day, the family of three became harmonious, with Hua Qian always accompanying her parents. A few days before the Zhong family banquet, Hua Qian found a way to send Hua Rongzhou away. On the day of the banquet, Hua Qian called Meng Fei out. Hua Qian didn't want to pretend with her anymore and straightforwardly stated that she knew about her ambitions. Meng Fei also stopped pretending, shamelessly mentioning Hua Qian. Hua Qian has always felt guilty about her brother. Hua Qian angrily knocked Meng Fei into the rocks. The rocks scratched Meng Fei's face. Afterwards, Hua Qian whispered a few words to her father and then knelt in front of the hall, publicly confessing that it was the Hua family who intentionally framed Mu Yao's father a year ago. But suddenly, Hua Wenan stood up and confessed to the crime of framing. Zhong Xiwu stepped forward, praising Hua Qian's righteousness and sacrificing her own family. Hua Qian quickly clarified that her father had never known about this matter and that it was her own jealousy of Mu Yao that led to the misunderstandings. Upon hearing this, Hua Wenan roared to the sky, taking all the blame upon himself. Zhong Xiwu, seeing this, quickly ordered someone to take Hua Wenan away. Watching her father being taken away, Hua Qian felt immense sadness. Zhong Xiwu, disregarding his own dignity, squatted in front of Hua Qian in front of everyone, hoping she could understand his good intentions. He had meticulously paved the way for her, gone against popular opinion to clear her name. Why wouldn't she take a single step? Hua Qian countered, asking why he didn't ask her if she wanted this. Zhong Manor might be vast, but she was never a bird in a cage. To prevent further trouble, Zhong Xiwu confined Hua Qian to Zhong Manor. Today is Zhong Xiwu's birthday. He brought a box of food to Hua Qian's courtyard, but she refused to acknowledge him, only wanting to leave Zhong Manor. Zhong Xiwu told Hua Qian that he only wanted her. Hua Qian's heart trembled slightly as she asked Zhong Xiwu if he was willing to give up everything for her. Since birth, Zhong Xiwu had never had a choice. He was destined to be controlled by circumstances, to love without being loved in return. Zhong Xiwu mentioned Hua Rongzhou. Hua Qian pulled out a bracelet as a warning for Zhong Xiwu not to harm Hua Rongzhou. Zhong Xiwu grabbed the sharp blade of the bracelet, and though Hua Qian tried to pull it back, it was held tightly by Zhong Xiwu. Hua Qian was willing to jump off a cliff for Zhong Yelan, take the blame for Hua Wenan, and even threaten her own life for Hua Rongzhou. It wasn't that she feared death, she simply didn't love Zhong Xiwu. Zhong Xiwu looked at Hua Qian, admitting that he had never wanted to hurt anyone she cared about. When the princess found out, she was furious. After Hua Qian drank the wine the princess gave her, she collapsed on the ground. By the time Zhong Xiwu learned of this, Hua Qian's courtyard was already engulfed in flames. Zhong Xiwu was distraught. He only wanted Hua Qian. So why was it so difficult? Hua Qian woke up from a nightmare, unsure of her whereabouts. She picked up the letter on the table, which stated that as long as Hua Qian never returned to Huang City in this lifetime, her family's safety would be guaranteed. On the 5th day of every month, Hua Rongzhou would break into Zhong Manor. Each time he entered, Huarongzhou's kung fu improved significantly, but he always left with injuries. Huarongzhou's objective was to defeat the guards around Zhong Xiwu so that he could obtain information about Hua Qian. As another 5th day of the month arrived, Huarongzhou returned once again. This time, he finally defeated the guards. However, Zhong Xiwu informed him that Hua Qian had passed away. Huarongzhou refused to believe it and decided to continue searching for her. Watching Huarongzhou, Zhong Xiwu felt a hint of envy. Huarongzhou could openly search for Hua Qian. He was the one she had been waiting for. Meanwhile, Zhong Xiwu could only secretly gather information about Hua Qian through intermediaries. With this in mind, Zhong Xiwu shared all the information he had about Hua Qian with Huarongzhou. After Huarongzhou left, Zhong Xiwu burned all the letters concerning Hua Qian, as if bidding farewell to the past and letting go of his obsession with her completely. That night, Hua Qian was alone. However, she felt someone following her on the road. She grabbed her bracelet for self-defense, but was pleasantly surprised to find that the person was Huarongzhou. They reunited after a long separation. Embracing tightly, Zhong Xiwu sat by the bed, gently wiping Hua Qian's hands. For the past 26 months, Hua Qian had been lying on this bed. 2 years ago, she had been caught trying to escape and witnessed her mother and brother passing away before her eyes. Deeply anguished, she coughed up blood and fell into unconsciousness. Fortunately, Zhong Xiwu arrived in time, saving this barely breathing woman. To keep Hua Qian alive, Zhong Xiwu personally crafted many dream-returning pills, burning them incessantly every day. One day, Hua Qian finally woke up. She noticed a familiar scent filling the room. Muyao walked in, blaming Hua Qian for her father's death. Confused, Hua Qian learned that everyone in the Hua family had passed away. Almost collapsing under the weight of this news, she asked Zhong Yelan if he remembered Huarongzhou. Zhong Yelan disdainfully stated that there was no such person in the Zhong family. Unable to believe it, when the familiar fragrance wafted again, Hua Qian realized she had been dreaming all along. Hua Qian coughed up blood, fainting in Zhong Xiwu's arms. Whether in dreams or reality, Zhong Xiwu's affection for Hua Qian never wavered. He thought Hua Qian would be happy once her wishes were fulfilled, but gradually, he realized she was losing herself. So this time, Zhong Xiwu decided to hold on tightly to her. In the dream, Hua Qian seemed to hear Zhong Xiwu's call, deciding to face it. Saying goodbye to Huarongzhou. As he gradually disappeared, Hua Qian slowly woke up, uttering Zhong Xiwu's name.